goes the whole introduction, not recorded. Anybody asks you what we were doing tonight, one of you can respond to that. So we're going to build up the practice starting with some presence of mind, okay, some mindfulness, and with the diaphragmatic breath. So myself and Siddhartha are fans of the diaphragmatic breathing process. We consider that to be the basis of all other breathing practices that you do in the context of yoga, at least the way that we present it. So diaphragmatic breathing really is the kingpin to other practices that you might develop with us or elsewhere. Yeah. So as the name suggests, diaphragm, you're using this muscular apparatus which, used correctly, oxygenates the blood more fully, brings the blood into the base of the lungs, strengthens the diaphragm. And when I've said this many times, I made this discovery of diaphragmatic breathing about 15 years into my yoga career. It's as if nobody had ever talked about it before. I hardly knew what the diaphragm was, but it revolutionized my practice through using the diaphragm. I learned to, first of all, I just learned to garner and harness the energy that's there in diaphragmatic breathing, because you're breathing correctly, you're oxygenating the body correctly. Also just adds strength and integrity to the feeling of the posture. So it has many different benefits. It's well worth persisting with, even though in effect it should be our natural way of breathing anyway, but we sort of seem to lose it somewhere down the road. Okay, so we're going to start off with that. I'd like you to, if you just come into the Sukhasana position, knees wide, lower legs on the floor, spine more or less upright, just to allow free movement through the passageways. And of course, the lengthening the spine, that will come a bit later on in the practice when we start working on forward bends. But for now, it's just a question of having the spine not collapsing at the 2 points of the thoracic or the lumbar. Okay. And in doing this, we're lining up something of the energetic process in the spine as well. You can kind of feel that when you've got it right. It's a sense of ease in the spine. Hands resting somewhere. Nose slightly tipped downwards. And just become aware globally. So we talk about this global awareness, which means the whole body, the whole panorama of your experience as you find yourself this evening. Both the physiological, psychological, emotional. And doing what you can for now to let go of your concerns, of your plans, of your projects, all those things that eat up mental space, seem to sit at the back of the mind, pressuring us somehow. Can you mute yourself, Saskia, please? And just becoming aware of the body in this position. And then turning the attention as well to the breath, so the breath comes into the scheme of your awareness. So how are you internally? How does it feel in the body? How's the energy? Now encouraging ourselves to breathe a longer breath. So the breath coming in and tracking down through the spine all the way down to the base of the belly. And exhaling from the belly back up. So diaphragmatic breath has characteristic movements to it. It doesn't have to be dramatic. The whole body doesn't have to move with the diaphragm. You can actually have quite a subtle diaphragmatic breath as well. So accessing a more subtle diaphragmatic breath comes with time. But we want to be clear of the signs and the feeling tone around the breath. So the expansion of the belly and the lateral expansion of the sides of the belly and the low ribs. And the back. We're going to do this 10 times, very deliberately, drawing the breath down, not stopping the breath anywhere, not holding the breath anywhere. In-breath flows to the out-breath, out-breath flows back into the in-breath. It's a continuous cycle of breathing. And let the out-breath have the effect of grounding you, just sort of clearing the space internally. Bring yourself into this space as much as you can. A few more breaths like that. Just being very conscious of the breath. If necessary, just making a little bit more effort to be conscious of the breath. So bring a bit more energy into the focus of the breath. And as time goes on, as we engage with the practice more, we can relax our awareness and just let that be there in a broad, global sense. Just watching how the mind emerges as we go through the practice, moment by moment. Just watching what the mind does with the practice this evening. Just observing the tone of your experience as you go through the different poses. It's all there to be observed, just noted. Okay, now I'd like you to bring your knees in so we come in. Sorry, you can't see me on the screen, but I'm going to bring the knees more into the center, feet further apart. So we call this the box pose. In some schools, they call it the swastika pose, swastikasana. Basic concept here is to have the thighs running in line with the hip joints as they come out straight more or less. Knees come in together. If you can't do that easily, don't force your knees into the center, depending upon the structure of your joints a little bit. Just rocking backwards and forwards a couple of times on the pelvis. If you want, you can even draw the buttock flesh out a little bit, just to incline the pelvis slightly forwards into anteversion as opposed to retroversion, going back. I want to go forwards. Interlocking the fingers loosely and pressing the palms forwards and bringing the hands upwards. One smooth movement, elongating through the spine. We continue with a diaphragmatic breath here. We notice the dynamic changes with the breath as we've got the arms above the shoulders. So what happens here? Just observe these changes as you go through the poses. Every pose will have something of a different effect, especially on the breathing process. Next, in breath, lengthening a little bit more and trying to maintain the length, the energy and the lengthening as you tip forwards now. Keeping the spine long. Okay, taking the hands down to the floor at the width of the shoulders, palms spreading, looking directly forwards to the floor, lifting the head one more time, and then we're going to extend forwards. As we extend forwards, we're also going to let the spine round, coming onto the forearms. If you're a bit more practiced, then you can perfectly well probably rest the head down towards the floor. Really depends on how much movement you've got in the hip joints at the moment. Okay, then come back into the breath again. Encourage the breath down towards the pelvis. So it's another way of just emphasizing the diaphragmatic breath, breathing down into the pelvis, as if you were breathing into the hip joints. And walking the hands back now towards the body, lifting the head up. Let the head carry the spine up. So I'm quite fond of this idea of as you come up with the spine lengthening. So bringing the head up. Lean back on the hands just temporarily to open the chest. So hands go back, lifting the heart center. And you can't really see that. And come forwards and change the leg position over. So the other leg now is in front and behind, okay? So we've gone straight into the practice more or less with what seems like quite a strong forward bend, and it is quite a demanding bend for at least for the pelvis. Okay. Once again, interlocking the fingers, one smooth movement forwards and above the head. Just encouraging you to observe the breath lower down into the body, more than the chest. Each in-breath, we grow a little bit longer through the trunk. So imagine the vertebrae separating out. Not really going to separate out that much, it's more of a visual exercise, but a sense of decompressing the vertebrae. So there's more lengthening happening through the trunk itself rather than the arms pulling up in some mechanical fashion. You're activating the body itself, the trunk itself to lengthen. And keeping that length, the energy through the length, extend forwards. One smooth movement down, hands on the floor at the width of the shoulders. Gaze forwards. So there's a calm gaze to the floor. Next in breath, you're just going to re-clarify the length in the spine once again. And then you can come forwards as much as you want to. And now you can let the spine round, or rather flex forwards, I should say. Leaving the weight of the head to come down if you want. If not, keep the head up and even keep the trunk lifted with the arms extended. Okay, there's no imperative to drop all the weight forwards here. Breathing to the pelvis, as if breathing into the hip joints themselves. Engaging each breath, one breath after the other. Three more breaths. And then walking the hands in, head lifts the spine up. So we come up with a spine that's lengthening. Hands behind the shoulders with the fingers facing forwards. I'm going to lean back onto the hands. Raise the heart center up to the sky. So you're lifting from the kidneys and then the heart. And then pressing forwards gently, okay? So we've still got the same leg in front here. I'm going to go to the right. So you're going to extend up the right arm and turn to the right side. So the spine does the rotating. Right fingertips behind, left hand on the right knee. Back of the left hand or the palm of the left hand. Doesn't really matter which way you have the shoulder. It's a question of preference. And then you're going to turn from the thoracic spine through the top of the head. Okay. forget about the lumbar spine. Don't necessarily focus on that area. Think of drawing up through the kidneys, thoracic spine, weight of the pelvis dropping down to the floor. And just watching in case the neck tries to override the whole process. And we know we've got more movement in the neck than any other part of the spine, so no need to overwork that. We're more focused here on the thoracic area, broadening through the chest. Gentle turn in the neck. Five more diaphragmatic breaths. Okay, turning your head to the front and then your body follows. Left arm extends up to the sky and we rotate to the opposite side. Same process. We keep the spine centered between the hip bones, neither too far back nor too far forwards. Okay, and each exhalation, just seeing if you can bring a little bit more of a rotation through the thoracic area. As I said already, the neck is the thing we least need to worry about because the neck has plenty of movement in it. So wherever you put the eyes and the gaze is really up to you. You can gaze forwards to the side. You can turn the head all the way around if you want. Play with those different positions in the twisting poses as you do the twisting poses. And rotate the head, if the head's not there already, and then the trunk back to the center. Arms extending out to the side, fingertips on the floor. Inhale, palms of the hands float up. Exhale, palms of the hands turn down and the arms float down. Once again, palms of the hands turn up and float up. And they turn down, exhaling. Superb. Okay, we're going to change our leg position now. So we're going to sit back into Virasana. Knees together, thighs together, feet together. And then bring the palms of the hands together in front of you, just crossing the thumbs over so the fingers can stay, don't interlock the fingers, just the thumbs. Okay, and extend the arms above you and the arms above go. Palms of the hands together, inhaling. So keeping some energy in the thighs and the feet, grounding them, especially the lower legs as well, the shins. Keeping the lengthening through the spinal column. Exhale, you're going to extend forwards. You will need to take the hands down on the floor from here. Keep the arms straight and slide the hands forwards and let the head come down between the arms. Okay, so keeping the weight of the pelvis back, so we're not lifting the pelvis away from the heels. So asking the spine to do two opposing movements in effect. Yeah, so you're drawing the pelvis down to the heels and you're lengthening the chest forwards, and then release the head to the floor. Breathing through the spine, activating the diaphragmatic breath, even though it's tricky, even though there's a lot of compression of the body, still activating to the extent we can the diaphragm. Yeah, we're very conscious of the breath and its movement. Keeping the arms gently extending, elbows lifted away from the floor. So we're spreading to some extent across the shoulder blades as well. Shoulder blades away from the spine, allowing there more movement there between the shoulder blades. Okay, now keeping the pelvis drawn back, slide the hands in towards you a bit. See if you can pick up as soon as you can the hands, sitting back and extending back up. Okay, once we're up, we're going to take the left hand down and around. My arms look super long, don't they? Let's come up all the way around. And you're going to feed the left hand up between the shoulder blades and catch the hand fingertips. If you need the belt, use the belt. I didn't say that, but sorry about that. Should be obvious. Okay. And before we come, we're going to come forwards again. But before we do that, I just want you to clarify the setup here so that we haven't got the neck in some strange position. Okay, so really take your energy and focus into lengthening the spine and keeping the neck lengthening. Crown of the head also lengthening. Grounding the shins and the feet. Okay. Keeping the elbow lifted up, so the right elbow lifted up and extended back slightly. Exhaling, you're going to come all the way down. Keeping the pelvis drawn back again towards the heels. And the head comes down if you can do that. Yeah. If you can do that. Okay, lifting the elbow away from the ground, keeping it lifting up. On the inhale, up you come. You release the arms for a moment to the side. Okay, left arm extends up, right hand comes around the back. So let's use the full range of motion around the back. Obviously, if you need to use a belt, okay? Please use what you need. Okay. Separating the elbows, extending up and extending down slightly, keeping the back of the neck long, crown of the head drawing up. Okay, so we're lengthening our trunk, keeping the pelvis drawn back towards the heels. Slowly coming down and releasing the head onto the floor if you can. Okay, lifting the elbow away from the floor. Need to engage Mula Bandha as you come up to support the back. Pelvis drawn towards the heels. Up you come. Release the arms and slide them in front of you now on the mat. Fingertips open. Hands down. Come up onto the knees. Step the feet back and shift yourself into the downward facing dog pose. Okay, keeping the head in between the upper arms for now, ears between the upper arms. So we like to encourage that sense of openness across the shoulders. So our weight draws more towards the small finger side of the hand because that enables us to power down and open the shoulders more. Keeping the thumb as well grounded, bases of the fingers. Lengthening the wrists gently through to the elbows. Mindful of the whole body, so a global awareness of what's going on in each part of the pose. Hands and the feet especially alive in the posture, because that's the basis of the pose. So whatever's on the floor forms the base of the pose. We'll stay here just a little bit longer. Just taking the time to refine the pose in whichever way seems useful. It might mean physically adjusting the pose to maximize the lengthening of the spine, the navel moving away from the pelvis. Might mean just focusing on the breath a bit more and deepening the diaphragmatic breath. It might be just not resisting trying to come out of the pose because something feels uncomfortable. Okay, so refinement can work on different levels. So you're embodying the posture through the breath. Okay, if you shift your gaze towards the front of the mat between the hands, like you to walk the feet forwards, we're going to do some work on from standing position, but not very much. You know? Not very much. Keep the spine long, soften the knees and bring the head up. Head brings the spine up. I have to step back for a moment. Although you know what I'm doing. Move into Trikonasana. So we're doing 3 poses from standing. First of all, we're going to do Trikonasana. And we're going to step the left foot back the length of the mat, turning the body, pelvis to the long edge of the mat. Extending the arms up, one smooth movement out to the sides. Left palm turned up, right palm turned down. And ground your feet, so activate your legs. So we talk about building the pose up from the periphery. So hands and feet engaged, okay? Keeping the pelvis neither thrown forwards like that, nor backwards like that. So keeping the pelvis in line with the trunk. Extend to the right side and extend out. Take the hand down onto the leg. Left arm sweeps up. One smooth movement. Looking up to the hand, looking out to the side, looking down to the floor. Depending upon what you want to do in the pose. Yeah. So from the pelvis, extending out through the legs to the feet. From the feet, we press back from the floor. Coming back into the pelvis again. So really make the solid base of the pose. From then we can do what we want with the spine or the hand. We can take the hand flat down on the ground if we want, if we feel we've got enough stability and flexibility. Or you keep the hand resting on the shin, or you'd use a block if you had a block as well, but I forgot to mention that. Just grounding the pose, see if we can stay a bit longer. We're going to spend a bit more time in the poses. Connecting to the breath, which helps sustain the pose, okay. All right. Pressing into your front foot, bend your knees slightly, inhale up you come. So I'm going to switch sides on the front of the mat. You can, if you want, just now turn the front foot in and the back foot out, just so that I can see what's going on the screen. Extending out, this time left palm facing up, right palm. Sorry, other way around. Right palm up, left palm down. Ground the feet, okay. Tipping from the pelvis. Taking the hand down. Let's start on the shin until we feel that we've entered the pose fully. We might then want to take the hand on the floor afterwards, but start off with the hand on the shin. From the pelvis, moving through the legs to the feet, and then back through the feet, through the legs to the pelvis again. I get a sense of how that works. So extending down, then drawing up. Keeping the spine long, neck extending. So if you've managed to get your alignment right in your own body, you'll find there's a sense of ease in the pose. You can just hold it without too much effort. Yeah. So that's what alignment does. It maximizes the use of the energy and effort in posture. So it becomes less effort to maintain the pose. I'm just going to hold this a bit longer. Okay, soften your front knee a little, just to make it easier to come up. Press down through your front foot and in-breath, up you come. And step to the front of your mat. Coming into Tadasana for a moment. Sorry, my head's missing on the screen. And then we're going to extend the arms above us. Exhale, fold forwards, hands down. Step the feet back into downward facing dog again. Using the length of your mat, so spread out, keep the pelvis lifted. Just exploring the 4 points of pressure. Yeah, through the hands, through the feet. Exploring what's going on in your shoulders in relation to your hand position. And you can work with that. There's quite a lot of scope for adjusting in these poses between the hand distance, between where the weight falls in the hands. So looking for a sense of openness in the joints, much as possible. So it's spaciousness, a sense of spaciousness in the posture, as opposed to feeling compressed and oppressed by the yoga practice we're doing. So you want to feel open in the pose. Right, from here, so you're going to come onto the tips, not the tips, but the ball of the back foot. That's the left foot, and step your right foot forwards. Fairly wide stance. We're going to come into high lunge twist actually. So fairly wide, but not too wide, because if you're too wide, you'll feel there's a pulling in the groin, in front of the groin. It might be a bit intense. Yeah? So we're going to come up. We're not going to go into a maximum position. We'll come into a sub-maximum position, which means we're coming out of the pose a bit, even if we can do more in terms of lowering the pelvis. Okay. And the left hand, so I've got my right foot forward, left hand on the right knee. I'm extending up my right arm, and I'm going to turn towards the right side and bring my right hand onto the sacrum. Sort of spreading my hand out between the sacrum and the buttocks. Okay. I'm going to lift up a little bit higher still so that I can lengthen the spine upwards and then rotate the trunk. Again, don't worry about the lumbar spine. Keep the focus in the thoracic spine here. Turning the gaze, depending upon your balance. Yeah. So it's a slightly tricky pose to maintain balance and twist. Stay mindful of the breath. If you find you're locking the breath, just relax the pose a little bit, relax the effort. Okay, turning forwards, take the left hand down on the floor and the right hand down on the floor, and then switch to the downward facing dog pose once again, just as a transition. And then we'll bring the opposite foot forwards. Okay. So I use the hand on the leg to press up from there, because it's a slightly vulnerable position for the back. Submaximal position, so don't sink down as much as you might do. Okay. Right arm extends up just to help us re-clarify the length of the spine. Exhaling, turning to the left side. Right hand supports the outside of the left leg. Thoracic spine, heart center rotating. And turning yourself forwards again. Okay, bringing the right hand down on the floor. Left hand down on the floor. Switch back again to the downward facing dog. Good. Okay, our last bit of standing work before we move on. So we're going to walk forwards again to the front of the mat. Prasarita Ekabadasana. So this is a one leg standing forward bend, not a practice that we're going to do that often by ourselves, pretty sure. So we're going to take the hands down on the floor, spreading the hands out, weight goes down on the hands. And then we're going to begin to lengthen the legs to the extent we can do that, okay? If you can't fully lengthen the legs, then keep the knees slightly bent, that's fine. Try and lengthen the spine out as much as you can. Heart center moving away from the thighs initially. Now we're going to sweep up the left leg, draw it up as high as we can, and see if we can tip the body more towards the standing leg. Okay, one smooth movement. You might not be able to access that very deeply. Try and keep the pelvis level, lengthening the legs out as much as you can. Okay, release that leg down. I know that's a really intense pose. All the way down. Exhale, sink into the legs. You can bend the knees for a moment. Release the head down. Okay, and then bring the head, chest away from the thighs again. Just re-clarifying that length in the spine. Lengthening the legs. Weight goes down for the left leg, supporting. Right leg swings back, smooth movement. Heart center coming forwards. Leg lifting higher and higher. Keeping the pelvis balanced. So you're probably looking at your shin or the floor, I imagine. Okay, release that leg down, all the way down. I'm going to come into a very, very soft Utkatasana. Uttanasana, sorry. Release the head down, all the way down. Knees bent. Just taking a pause for a moment. And then walking the feet back. So I'd like you to bring the knees down on the floor and take a version of the child pose that you most like. So just sitting back. Very, very simple version or a more classical version. Main principle is to let go for the next 10 breaths. So we're just going to deactivate the effort for a moment. And allow the muscles just to soften around the skeleton.
Encourage the brain to rest into the head. Ears resting towards the center of the brain. Eyes resting into the head. Okay, if you'd like to place your hands on the floor, press yourself up and then come into a sitting position with your legs extended forwards. We're going to start off with the next cycle, next phase of Janushisasana. So with the legs extended forwards, feel free to use a block or a blanket under the buttocks for some of these poses because we're doing quite a lot of sitting forward bending, and we want to emphasize the pelvis lifting and tipping forwards as much as we can in all the poses. Sometimes it helps to have a little bit of a prop under the back. Okay. So slide your left heel along the leg into the inner right thigh with the knee going out. Okay. You might want to keep your belt handy. We won't always take the hand to the foot, by the way. And we're going to clarify two things. One is just really lengthening the spine, and the other one is rotating the heart center towards the extended leg. Okay. So there's a lifting up through the trunk and a slight rotation towards the extended leg, lengthening both sides of the waist from the pelvis to the lower ribs. Okay. And then we're going to reach up through the left arm and extend forwards, tipping the pelvis and taking the hand down, both hands to the either side of the foot, or if you're a bit more practiced, you can take the hands onto the foot. Okay, shoulder blades releasing. So at no point do we want to feel that we've got to make a move into the pose to let the head come down onto the shin. Okay, we don't have to do that. Okay, that's one way of doing the practice. But we can express it fully by not even letting the spine come towards the leg. We can just work on lengthening out of the pelvis, keeping the spine long. Connect with the breath in the diaphragm. Be aware of the movement of the breath in the low body. Engaging the leg that's lengthening. So you're reaching from the pelvis to the heel. Spreading the foot. So Padabandha, Mula Bandha, lifting up from the perennial floor gently. So these bandhas are a gentle process, not a forced process. When you engage the periphery of the body, you activate the bandhas, often through the whole body. So the hands and feet, Hasta Bandha, Padabandha, activate the other bandhas. Yeah? Okay, bringing the body up, inhaling. So you notice you're engaging the back quite a bit to be in that position. Extend your opposite leg out, slide your right heel up and in, inside the left leg. Once again, just re-clarify that sense of lengthening and rotating the trunk. Okay. Right arm extending up, and as we exhale, we use the out breath to come into the first part of the pose. Yeah? Front leg is active. So draw your attention into the parts of the body that feel most challenged in the pose for a moment, and see if you can, as it were, breathe into those areas. And see if you can stay alive to the lengthening process that's going on in the posture. And much of this is about lengthening. Okay, and from lengthening comes the forward boot movement. Just going to stay here a bit longer. Before we take an in-breath and draw the body up. Okay. Now bring your right leg forwards again. I'd like you to bring your left leg this time around you. We're going to come into Pravarita Janushirshasana. So the left heel sweeps around the back of the body towards the sacrum of the coccyx. Okay. So I said some of these poses are slightly awkward, didn't I? So complex poses to do. So what you'd have, if I were looking down at you from above, is you'd have a sort of L shape between your extended leg and this leg coming out here. Okay. With the heel probably won't turn right round onto the floor. So you can think about the toes coming in towards the sacrum, if not the heel. Yeah. Okay, once again, re-clarify that sense of lengthening in the spine. Drop the pelvis down, rotate the trunk slightly towards the leg. Okay, with an in-breath, reach up through your left arm. Exhale, we're going to extend out and down. Okay. So once we've got the hands down, we might want to focus on just re-lengthening the sides of the body. Heart center turning towards the straight leg. Okay, there's no imperative to get the hands onto the foot or let the head come down. If you want to practice like that, you can practice like that, but it's enough to do, just work on lengthening. Grounding the legs and extending through the front leg. How does it feel in the body? What are the actual what's the sensory feedback through the posture? Does it change the more you stay in the pose? Does it seem to get better or worse? Now walking the hands back in, head comes up, spine lengthens. Bring that foot out. One smooth transition to the other side, all the way back. L shape between the extended leg and the knee coming out to the side. Okay. Re-clarify the spine, length, rotation. Inhale, right arm extends up, exhale, extending forwards. Yeah. So there is a twist in the spine to some extent. There's even a slight lateral bend in the spine. It's not a pure forward bend from the pelvis. But the predominant movement is from the right side of the body. Yeah. The left side of the body, sorry. Just observe the differences because they're bilateral poses. How does it feel different? Keeping your attention in the felt sense of the posture throughout the body. What is the actual feeling, experience within the pose? A few more breaths here. Okay, and then we're going to release up, taking the hands in, walking back. Ooh, demanding, isn't it? Right leg comes forwards. Okay. So we're just going to keep practicing our chain of postures one after the other here. So we're going to bring the left leg back again, this time coming into Triyang Mukha Paschimottanasana. Okay, so you try saying that backwards. I like to take the calf muscle out. So when I've got the leg folded like that, I take the calf muscle and I just roll it out so that I open up the space around the back of the knee a bit more. Okay, it just makes the whole thing less compressed in the calf joint, calf muscle, and the soleus. Yeah. So some people like to use a block here to press into the straight leg side of the hip. Just helps them bounce a bit more. But the whole technical instruction basis of the pose is to ground really firmly the bent leg side. So you're really pushing down through the shin, but sometimes it can lead to an over-efforting, which is not necessarily helpful, okay? Because it creates tension around the pelvis. So sometimes it's more useful to use a block or a blanket. And then really clarify once again the length in the spine. So we'll raise the arms on an in-breath. Okay, nice and loose through the trunk. And then we're going to extend forwards in a line with the legs. Take the hands down. Once again, re-clarify the length in the spine. And then if you're a bit more practiced, then you can kind of do what you want, really. You can come further into the posture if you like, a more classical sense, or just keep the hands down, work on lengthening the spine. Yeah. Keeping the energy in the midline of the posture, through the spine, through the pelvis in the center. So try not to spill out to the sides. So let's just explore the different possibilities, but be very aware of the felt sense of the pose, because your body will feed you back to what's going on. Just noticing whether the tensions and restrictions seem to get looser, or whether the body tightens up even more. A sign that perhaps we're just going into the pose too far for now. Keep the breath alive. A few more breaths on this side. Lifting the head, let the head carry the trunk upright. Okay. Bring the left leg out. Bring the right foot in. Again, propping the hip up if you find that useful. I certainly do find it useful with one block. Just enables me to focus much more on the posture rather than falling out of it. I'm trying not to fall out of it. Okay, grounding down through the pelvis. Inhale, raise the arms, lengthen through the trunk again. So we come back again and again to this sense of lengthening, but loosely through the spine, okay? And then tipping from the pelvis initially, hands down. Pay close attention to the feedback in your body. How's the pose feel as you're coming into it? Can you gain a bit more access in the posture? Or for now, do you have to just stay there, stay where you are, even back off slightly and focus more on the breath? We're just experiencing. So the main thing here is that we're aware of what's going on in the body, noticing how the mind responds. So remember what feeling tone is. Feeling tone is how you feel about the object. So you'll have a pleasant or an unpleasant feeling about what's going on, which is just arising. You're not doing anything. All right. Inhale coming up. Take the support out of the way now. Extend both legs forwards for a moment. Let's take a pause for 5 breaths. Legs extending forwards, spine lengthening. So we're going to come into the first Madhyasana, which is a binding pose around the front of the shin. So you're going to bring the right foot in. There are different ways of attempting this depending upon the structure of your hip and your spine. So some people find it better to bring the leg right in so that it's close into the upper thigh, and others prefer to keep the foot out so that you keep a space between the foot and the thigh. Okay, so which is the way I practice. Basically, it works better for me. Okay, so it depends upon a number of factors, but try both ways. Okay, the logic of keeping the body, it doesn't really make much difference in terms of bringing the body forwards because the knee moves out slightly anyway. So that's not the issue. The issue is the hip structure. It works better, at least for me, to keep the hip out slightly. Then I'm going to extend up through my right arm, and I'm going to reach forwards on an exhale as far as I can. And I'm going to see if I can, and I might not be able to, turn the palm of the hand around and up. So as you bring the arm around, turn the palm right up to the sky, and then keep the arm low and catch whatever you can catch. And that might be enough for you. You might not be able to now do the next bit. So the main thing is to keep the spine, first of all, lengthening. If you can bind easily, well, bind, that's fine. And even if you can bind fairly easily, I want you just to re-clarify the length of the spine. So bringing the chest up, first of all, heart center, looking forwards. So I'd like you just to re-clarify there. Okay. How easy or not is it to breathe at this point? Because that depends. Depending upon that, is what you do, changes what you do next. So you're either going to come further forwards into the pose, extending from the heart center, not the nose. So the neck and head face stay fairly relaxed. Okay. You find yourself striving from the neck outwards. Try not to. Try to come from the heart center. Engaging the front leg with awareness. So the foot is activating and expressing Pada Bandha, spreading through the foot. Okay, in breath, come up with a spine that's long. It's a really wonderful set of poses. They warrant being in longer than usual. Okay. So again, set yourself up as you did on the other side, re-clarifying, lengthening and extending forwards on an out breath, turning the palm of the hand right up. So you rotate the arm in, and then you might just press the back of the hand against the back of the thigh. If you're a binding person, then you take the fingertips. Okay, and again, just re-clarify that length in your heart. First of all, lifting, looking forwards. Okay, and depending upon what's happening there with the breath, you might then decide to lower the body a bit more. Heart center extending. Front leg active. Can you quieten the breath down a bit, but still keep the breath very full? So you're breathing with the diaphragm. Okay, inhaling, trunk comes up, spine along. Good. Now we're going to bring the left heel underneath the right leg. So we're going to do Manityasana 2 twisting, but not the complex version. Do a simple version of the twist. And the right foot comes either heel to the knee or heel over the knee. Okay, it's up to you. The more the foot comes to the other side of the leg, the more compact the pose becomes because you're drawing everything much more into the center. Okay, so, and again, with the hands on the knees for a moment, just re-clarify the length of the spine, dropping the pelvis down on the floor, so to speak. So let the weight go down through the pelvis, spine lengthens. And then on the inhale, raise the right arm and turn to the right side from the trunk, thoracic spine, fingertips down. And then this left arm may or may not like to hug the knee to draw it in more. Okay, so that's a way of doing it. You just put the crease of the elbow around the outside of the knee and hug it in more. So you're really drawing everything into the center line, center midline of the body. Pelvis down. Don't forget to lengthen the spine. Again, what you do with the head after that is really up to you. You can experiment. Okay, change over to the other side. And just enter into the pose, your own pace. Okay, turning the head back to the center, rotating the trunk back to the center. So now we're going to lie down. We have a couple of poses lying down. We still will do a session of meditation. Might spill over the 1 hour, 15 minutes a little bit tonight. Hopefully that's okay. Lying down on the floor in the supine position. Bring your feet up. You bring your feet up and take hold of the inside of the big toes, if you can. So the so-called baby pose. Okay, ensuring that the lumbar spine and pelvis drop down onto the floor. So we've got the whole length of the spine on the floor with the pelvis as well. If we can do that. Okay, if you can't easily take the feet, then take the shins. Whatever you can get hold of, basically. Okay, I'm just going to rock gently one side to the other side, just as a baby seems to do. Yeah. Okay, and then you center yourself and then start to extend the legs out more and widen the feet more. So widening the feet and lengthening the legs at the same time. Yeah. All the while, playing with this sense of extending the spine to keep the sacrum down. So find your maximum position through opening the legs. It's mainly gravity doing the work here. Extending through the heels. Shoulders drop back. Chin moves away from the chest. And you're looking to the sky. Okay, releasing the legs and bringing the feet onto the floor. Coming to semi-supine position. I'm just going to rest in semi-supine position for a couple of minutes. Placing the hands just beneath the navel and the elbows onto the floor with your feet about hip width apart. Okay. Dropping the spine down as much as you can. Pelvis down, weight goes down onto the floor. And one last time, we're going to reconnect with the diaphragmatic breath, and I'd like you to take 8 breaths, okay, 8 full breaths, breathing in, breathing out through the diaphragm. Okay, rolling around onto your right side, I'd like you to take your meditation posture. So it'll be a short-led practice, but you're welcome to carry on practicing here at home, so you can stay there all night if you wish. So I'm going to do a practice with you that's improvised and taken from a Buddhist practice, a Buddhist figure known as Vajrasattva. So it has a purificatory quality, function, if you like. It's going to be very simplified, okay? Modified even. So just let awareness drop back into the body, down into the body, just as the weight of the body falls onto the ground. Be aware of the sensation base of your experience in the body, first of all, in a very global way, so just the whole body. And aware of the sensation base of the mind. How does the mind feel? How does it perceive its experience at the moment?
your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings. This is the substantial part of what we are as experiencing beings. So the body and the feelings and our mind, in terms of our mental state, mind objects, these are what we talk about as the 4 areas, the 4 foundations of awareness. And Satipatthana means something like awareness in the area of, in the domain of these 4 areas, which are always fluctuating, always changing. So we sometimes look for stasis and fixity, but that's not how we are. We are flow and process and change. So our awareness notices this. So we're just going to rest our attention on the crown of the head, imagining a small white disc, about 2 or 3 centimeters in diameter. And then this disc begins to extend down through the trunk, just in front of the spine, opening like a long tube. And it's a white tube. As it moves down through the body, connects up through the different chakra systems, and it arrives down at the base chakra, more or less, just in front of the coccyx. Slightly transparent. And this white tube begins to expand so that it begins to fill the body with what looks like a light, sort of translucent white light, filling the body. From the spine, through the limbs, through the trunk, moving in each direction, and then beginning to expand beyond the body. So we're just aware of the body and the breath. And the sense of white light expanding through the body, beyond the body. And the characteristics of this are purifying, cleansing, harmonizing. Now we're going to let this white light retract back into the body, slowly moving back in towards the tube along the spine. No rush. This tube begins to retract towards the top of the head, from the base of the spine, becoming shorter and returning to its disc shape just on top of the head, crown of the head. And we just remain with that awareness for the next couple of minutes. So feel free to carry on practicing, free to stop if you want. I'm going to finish the session there. Thank you very much, everyone.